Hey guys, my name's Ali Popoff and I'm the owner of Powered by You CrossFit West Kootenay. Today we're here to talk about
injury prevention for shoulders and neck.
you guys, when we're starting off our shoulder and neck program, first thing we're going to do is doing some mobilization with the lacrosse ball. First area is going to be the supraspinatus. It's a very deep muscle underneath the trap and it controls abduction as well as pressing overhead. So if you have shoulder impingement or neck issues, this is a really good place to start. I'm going to show you several different options for doing this exercise. First one is just taking a basic lacrosse ball, hockey ball, tennis ball. You're going to put it against the trap right above the shoulder blade, and all you're going to do is lean into the wall, move your feet a little bit ways from the wall, and you're going to spend about 60 seconds to 2 minutes here depending on the level of tightness. If you find a super tight spot, just pause, allow the lacrosse ball to sink into that trigger point and feel a release before you move on to the next area. Another really good spot to do is the attachment of your lat. You can do this against the wall as well as on the floor. You would take the lacrosse ball and you would put it right underneath the edge of your armpit. You'd raise the arm up overhead and same thing, you're just going to sink into the attachment. If you find a super sore spot, you can hang out there, or you can move up and down or side to side. If you find that this isn't intense enough, you can do the same area laying on the floor. So you take the lacrosse ball, you would lay down, open your arm up, same exact way, move the lacrosse ball underneath the attachment, which is right behind the crease of the armpit, and you can just lay right into it, roll side to side. You can also do this one on the floor with a foam roller. Whatever variation you're doing, you just want to move nice and slow. So whether you're using the foam roller, which is going to be a little less intense, or a lacrosse ball, moving slowly allows time for the muscle to release. If you're rolling back and forth quite vigorously, you just tighten up the rest of your body and you don't actually allow that muscle to lengthen. Once you've done the attachment of your lat, this next one is actually highly recommended. It is a mobilization for your first rib as well as your supraspinatus and your trap. So you would take your lacrosse ball, you would go up to probably the corner of a door, like the edge of a door frame. You're going to lean forward and you're going to press that lacrosse ball right back into your first rib, or a better point of reference is the top of your trap. Once you're in there, this might be pretty intense. All you would do is just move up and down, side to side. If you found a really sore, tight spot, you can just hang out and release. The next stage to this exercise is taking the arm down and then just mobilizing the first rib by raising it up and down, but keeping the arm straight through the full range of motion. So if you only get slightly out in front to about there, that's as far as you go. There's a lot of other great first rib mobilization exercises that Kelly Starrett does that you can find on YouTube, but this is a nice variation that you can do at home with a lacrosse ball. Once you're done doing that on both sides, then you're going to move into a supraspinatus and first rib mobilization on the floor. So you would take your lacrosse ball, you're going to lay it onto your floor. You're going to put the lacrosse ball pretty much in the same site it was on the first variation against the floor, so it's pretty much the trap. What you're going to do is you're going to bridge your hips so that you put a little bit more pressure onto the lacrosse ball. Then the arm along the same side of the ball, you're going to raise it up above the head and then back down along the side of the body. As you move through this range of motion, you're going to notice that there's going to be different areas that are a little bit sore, but the whole point is that you're moving slowly and that the arm is remaining straight. So if you come up and you start to bend at the elbow, you should just stop right there and keep the arm straight through that range of motion until you can get it all the way up overhead. I would do this on both sides, regardless of what side the injury is on, for anywhere between 20 to 40 reps. Moving nice and slow, allowing the lacrosse ball to sink into the shoulder. Once you've done that, the next thing we're going to move into is a thoracic mobilization exercise. The thoracic spine is the chunk of vertebrae that's located right on the opposite side of the sternum. A lot of times shoulder impingement as well as lower back impingement can be caused because there's a lack of rotation through the thoracic spine. So if you have any kind of kyphosis from biking, sitting at a job, it could be your natural postural set. You want to mobilize that area because it's naturally going to give you more range of motion through your shoulders. One of the easiest variations of doing this is a side-lying foam roller thoracic mobilization. Brent's going to turn onto his side. And 2 foam rollers isn't necessary, but it's nice. You're gonna have one alongside your lower body so that your opposite leg can roll on top. The leg is flat. Then he's gonna lay onto his sides with his palms touching, arms out in front. And then you can use another foam roller or whatever you want underneath your lower back. So with this exercise, the nice reason the reason for having a foam roller underneath your knee is so that your knee stays fixed in one position. The pelvis remains neutral, meaning both the hip bones are facing forward. Brent's going to inhale, and as he exhales with a straight arm, he's going to open his arm up and back, keeping the knee anchored. His gaze is going to follow his eyes as far as he can, and then he comes back. It's not necessary to time each rep with an exhale, but it's nice to keep continuous breath moving because that's also going to increase thoracic mobilization. So again, biggest point of reference is the knee stays pointing forward. It does not slide back as he opens his arm. And what you're trying to do is create rotation through the mid-back. With this exercise, I would do anywhere between 10 to 20 reps on each side. If you feel that one side is a bit more of a restricted movement, then just do a few reps until you feel like you can get that gaze following those fingertips all the way through. After you do thoracic mobilization, the next exercise I would move into would either be a joint capsule release or a pec release, which I'll show you both. So I'm going to get Brent to stand. So with shoulder impingement issues, a lot of it has to do with trap and supraspinatus, but can also have something to do with the actual joint itself. The way that you would test this is you would have somebody hold your arm out, elbow comes parallel from the shoulder, and you want them to just be totally relaxed. Now I'm going to take his palm and I'm just going to bring the palm up so that now his elbow and wrist are in alignment with his ear. What you want to be able to do is press his arm back about 15 degrees. Now he's got that range of motion, but it's a bit tight, and I would suspect that his tightness is coming from the front of his pec and not his joint capsule. Most of the time, if you have joint capsule tension, getting up to here is either going to cause some pain or else you're just going to tell right away that there's massive restriction. So Brent isn't necessarily a candidate for joint capsule release, but I'm going to show you anyway. You would need a dowel for this. Now in the side that you're, the joint capsule release, right? Okay, so just go into that position. Perfect. So what Brent does, if you look at his dowel is on the outside of his elbow, but then he grabs it in between his thumb and finger. And that it is important for this that the elbow is kind of in alignment with the shoulder joint. So I don't like it when it's like this. I would prefer it coming straight out at 90 degrees. Now all Brent is going to do is he's going to hold on to his dowel and he's going to try and pull his hand forward while restricting the movement here. It's just a contract and relax. Once he's done that for 10 seconds, he's going to release. And then he's going to gently pull the dowel back so it moves his hand back into 15 degrees range of motion. The movement is coming from the opposite arm. So he's pivoting through the joint as if he's doing this. Okay, we're not trying to move the arm out of position. It's just this type of rotation. Then again, he would pull forward to contract all the muscles around the joint capsule, relax, and then gently externally rotate through the joint. You are not trying to move into tension, meaning only move a range of motion that you feel released with every contract and relax. If it's not releasing, just keep working that specific range of motion. Okay, so joint capsule, I would recommend always doing it on the same on both sides. 10 reps, contracting forward for 5 seconds, releasing back for 10 seconds. Now, if somebody tests your joint capsule, I'll take this, and you bring the arm up, it just flops back to 10 degrees or 15 degrees range of motion, then you're not a candidate for joint capsule release. What I would do instead is a pec release with the dowel. So all you do is get the dowel, let's switch those ends. You're going to get the dowel right into the head of where the pec inserts, And then all you would do is just kind of lay your body over top, so Brent's kind of concaving his chest and allowing that to get right into where those attachments are, and just hanging out in this area for about 30 seconds to a minute on each spot. And you'll do that for up to 2 minutes on each side. Again, if you have shoulder pain on the left, don't just do the left, just because of fascial membrane and everything. Your shoulder problem could actually be caused by something on the opposite side, so always do both sides. You can bring in any movement you want as long as there's no pain, just searching for those tight areas. After you would either do your pec release or your joint capsule release, we're going to move into another pec stretch as well as a supraspinatus and levator scapula stretch. So we're going to take Brent over to the rig. So this band right here is the lightest tension band that we have. If you don't have a band like this, the way to do it at home is by using a doorknob. A doorknob is about at the same level of which we want the hand. So what Brent's going to do is he's going to get his fingertips into the bottom of the band, and then he's going to loop the band back around him so the band is pulling his arm up. Good, perfect, stay just like that. So you can see that this band is the perfect tension for Brent because his shoulder and his shoulder blade are still relatively tucked onto his back. If you were to grab the band and your shoulder's like this, it means the band tension is too tight. So that would mean that you're in a candidate for a doorknob, or even using something like a clasp of a barbell holder and moving it down. Now, to do a supraspinatus and pec release, all you're going to do is pull down on the band, just like we did with the dowel, contracting forward, we're contracting down. He releases, and then all he's going to do is draw his shoulder blade back and down. Now, in this position, you might feel a gentle stretch to the front of the chest or down the arm, but either way, you're going to have a benefit by doing this exercise even if you don't feel anything. So he pulls down for 5, releases, draws his shoulder blade back and down, and holds there for 10 seconds. Now that's going to get into the front of the shoulder as well as the supraspinatus. Now to really get into the neck as well as the levator scap, he's going to pull down, releases, draws his shoulder blade back and down, then takes his gaze over to his opposite shoulder and then down. And you hold here for 10 seconds. And you want to make sure it's 10 seconds. After that, he repeats the whole process. Comes back to the center, pulls down for 5, releases, draws his chin all the way over first, looks way over, then looks down, and comes back to the center. Good, when you're getting out of the band, you can just allow the band to just creep up and then release the arm. Again, making sure you're repeating both sides. Now, the next thing we're going to move into is a levator scap stretch. All of this so far has been for shoulder impingement, either up at the top, front, and back of the shoulder. Levator scap stretch is going to reduce any kind of pain that you feel in your actual neck as well as your occipital ridge. So when you're doing this, you're going to come to a wall. You're just going to face that way, Bren. Awesome. So first of all, you want to be about an elbow distance away from the wall, so bring your arm up onto the wall. Good, just like that. Now when Brent brings his arm up, his shoulder is naturally relaxed. If he was any closer to the wall, his arm would be way jacked up like this. Right now, his shoulder joint is relaxed down, his neck is relatively relaxed. He can rest his elbow on the wall and just bring his hand back just to relax, or you can keep it flat, whatever you like. Now, all you're going to do to get into the levator scap is you're going to take your chin and look over to the left shoulder and then look down. So the actions are separated. You first look over and then you look down, and that's how you get into the levator scapulae. So he comes back to center, he looks over first, then he looks down. Now, by raising the arm up on the wall like that, it lifts the shoulder blade, which then allows you to get into the levator scap. So this stretch would feel completely different if your arm was along your side. It's important to have your arm up and relaxed, then you're going to get deeper into those muscles. Same thing with the supraspinatus stretch or with the band. I would do 10 reps for a 10-second stretch on each side. So now once we're done all of our mobility and rolling, we want to make sure that we add in some kind of stabilization. One thing that I think works the best is going to be a serratus anterior exercise. So Brent's going to come down onto the mat. We call this a serratus push-up. The serratus muscles are along the sides of the body, and they control retraction and depression of the shoulder blades. So it would make sense that after we mobilize and stretch all this stuff, we want to strengthen the opposite muscle that's going to naturally keep our shoulder blades depressed back and down and give us strength there, so these guys can relax. So if this is too much for you being in a full plank position, you can always go from your knees. Brent's going to step back. Now in this position, he has his nice hollow rock. The positions of his spine are perfect. Now in order to do a serratus push-up properly, you first have to puff up through your shoulder blades. So notice how he rounds excessively. Now without the rest of his body changing, all he's going to do is sink his shoulder blades together. Now notice how his arms stay locked out. Nothing else changes anywhere else. Now he's going to puff back up and hold. Boom, that's the serratus. So it's the muscle right here controlling this action. Now he sinks back together. Arms stay straight. Then he puffs back up, over-exaggerating the space between his shoulder blades. One more time, he sinks together. Arms stay straight. Spinal position stays the same. He puffs back up and holds at the top. Perfect, take a break. So with serratus push-ups, you can have the exact same form, even from the knees, it does the exact same thing. I would do about 3 sets to about 8 to 12, and as you get a little bit stronger, you can go back up to about 12 to 15 reps. That completes our shoulder and neck mobility series. We'll see you guys soon.